ready to do life and business on your terms and truly live your big ticket life. You either make excuses or you choose to level up. What amazing guests living the big ticket life. Woo! Woo! Brandon Brittingham.
Appreciate you having me here today, man.
It's that kind of discernment, that kind of focus, that kind of forward thinking that's so important if you're going to succeed in business today.
Jeff and I are like friends. We're real friends.
We are And so you unlock fortune and freedom without all the stress that normally comes along with it.
It all comes down to your why. Your business, why are you doing it? How is it going to change the world and what's it going to do for your family?
I want you to celebrate your success.
Talk about the struggle. But I promise you, the story is in your struggle.
They'll never be able to say that about me because people only see me working hard in anything that I'm doing whenever they see me.
Focused on your success and the success of those around you.
But being that constant in your community, good or bad, whether things are great in the community, bad in the community, who's steady?
Unapologetically do business and life on your terms and truly live your big ticket life. What amazing guests living the big ticket life. And we discuss how they do it and the big ticket methods they use. The things that make your life successful so you do life and business on your terms.
In and of itself, the only limitations that we really have on ourselves is the ones that we allow to be put on ourselves. And most people don't look at it in that perspective.
There's nothing wrong with being humble, but there's also nothing wrong with stepping into your superpower and letting people know who you are.
Get ready to do life and business on your terms and truly live your big ticket life. All right, welcome back. Another great episode of the Big Ticket Life. We're already well into 2024. I've got a great guest on the show today with me, Jeff Tomaszewski. Welcome to the show, man.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. I love the intro that we have where in my show where Brandon talks about stepping into that superpower and MaxStrength Fitness. You've got a lot of strength and it's certainly around fitness, but I'm going to kick the show off. We've talked about this in the pre-show. I'm going to kick the show off about the strength you have derived from grief, because you've had your fair share, right, in life. You shared with me in the pre-show, your mother passed away when you were 5 and your father had to raise you. And then, recently, this was how many years ago? Your dear wife, Jodi, passed away?
June of 2021.
June of 2021. So, coming up on 3 years with that. And again, my condolences. And it's just something that you never want to handle, but I applaud you for the strength to come on the show, talk about it, because as the shows evolve, Jeff is a living example of courage. This is what the world needs. This is our people we lead need examples like Jeff on the show. And so I'd love for you to share your battles around grief, the passing of your mother, the passing of Jodi, and you're a girl dad to 3 amazing girls. We're connected on Facebook, so I see all the stuff you do with them and the way you're leading them, and they look to be fine young women. So I'm going to turn it over to you to just let's dig into how you've been able to pull yourself up through that grief over the years.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, it all started when I was 5. My mother battled ovarian cancer for 18 months. And I saw what that did to her body, her mind, her spirit, her soul. And I'll remember it like it was yesterday. I mean, think back, what do we really remember at the age of 5? Not much.
Yeah.
But there's a couple instances I remember, and this one will stick with me forever, obviously. It was Easter weekend. I just woke up. I have 2 older brothers, one 18 months older than me, one 10 years older than me. And my dad, got us up, sat us down on the family couch. And in my gut, even only being 5, I knew exactly what he was about to say. Mom's gone. So I watched her struggle. And I watched my dad raising us 3 boys while my mom was struggling with cancer. He was a factory worker in Toledo, Ohio. He did the best he could with what he had. And unfortunately, I would come to lean on that strength and experience from my dad come in June of 2021. So family vacation set. We're going down to Destin, Florida. We have about 18 family members and friends we bought this big house. It was our Christmas gift to a lot of people. And so my wife, high-powered attorney, very independent, very successful woman, just the light of the earth, and accomplished so much in her life. And so whenever we have an early flight out of Cleveland, there's a hotel on the premises of the airport that we usually stay at. So we got in late. It was around midnight, and we fell asleep. About an hour later, my youngest one was in the room with me. My 2 older ones were in an adjacent room with a friend that we were taking with us on vacation. And my youngest one just was screaming at the top of her lungs, "Mom, wake up. You're snoring. You're snoring. You're snoring." Well, Jodi wasn't snoring. She was grasping for air. I realized with my background being athletic training, sports medicine, emergency medicine, that something was drastically wrong. So I immediately called 911, started doing compressions. I did that for 15 minutes. I mean, the response time, there's a EMS at the, 5 minutes away. I don't know what took so long, but it is what it is at this point. So my youngest daughter of, at the time she's 12 watching this, my 2 older daughters then come screaming in, they run downstairs to get help. EMS finally comes. They move us out of the room. I follow them to the hospital, and I'm in the room, by myself for about 20 minutes, just praying to God, please don't take her, and then they come in and they said that she was pronounced dead. So, at that moment in time, your life is just completely turned upside down. That being said, I had my few minutes alone with Jodi. I made my peace, said my goodbyes. And then all I could think about was driving home, because the friend that was staying with us, her dad had come and picked up the girls and took them back to my house while I was at the hospital. And so all I could think about with it was like a 40-minute commute back home, was how am I going to tell my girls? And I simply just leaned on my dad, because he was our rock growing up, raising 3 boys on his own, being a factory worker and doing the best he could with what he had. And that's its own challenge in and of itself. And here comes life full circle now, me now left to raise my 3 girls on my own. So I just kept remembering 5-year-old Jeffrey and how that news hit me and how I was going to deliver it to my girls. And so I got home, told them the devastating news. And, look, at the end of the day, they say life is too short. And I'm a living example that it is. I lost my mom at 5. I lost my wife.
Yeah.
She was 48. And, here's the thing I know about grief. It comes in waves. So imagine you're out in the ocean and it's calm and it's serene and it's beautiful. And that's what our life was like. And all of a sudden, in a moment's notice, a tidal wave comes through and just crashes you and pushes you underneath the waves. And it's like a riptide that will not let go of you. And you don't know if you're going to be ever able to come up for air. That's what grief's like. And it can come any second, any moment. And it still hits me almost 3 years later without a moment's notice. But just like storms come and they pass. One of my favorite sayings in life is, "This too shall pass." Now, that being said, this too shall pass can mean, you're experiencing something bad. This too shall pass. You're sick. This too shall pass. You have a bad conversation or bad experience with somebody. This too shall pass. But on the flip side of that too is, think about it from this perspective. When things are good in life, this too shall pass. So it's always that ebb and flow of the good and the bad that come within your life. And just like the waves crashed that night on us, and they still come to this day, it's living through my faith, my family, my friends, my team. It's the only thing that's carried me through. I got faith tattooed on my wrist as a daily reminder of God has a bigger plan. And, we all have our life plans. And, I think one of my favorite sayings, it was by Mike Tyson of all people. It's like, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. And man, were we punched in the face that night. And life, they say, goes on. And I argue that, because when you tell somebody who's grieving and who's lost somebody, oh, you'll be fine, life will move on. That's hurtful. So be aware of that. And when somebody's grieving, don't ask them how they are. Ask them, how are you today? How are you right now? What can I do in this moment? Because that's all they can think about. So there was a great book that helped me get through this entire time was Option B. I forget Sheryl Sandberg. She was with Facebook, and her husband passed away suddenly of a heart attack, and she wrote a whole book on dealing through the grieving process and dealing with her kids and the same exact thing. So I read that book maybe 3 or 4 times. I've given it to many people who have lost their spouses. That was a huge resource for me. Another saying comes from, going through life's and obstacles and challenges is a sailor only gets skillful by going through the storms. Because if it's always calm waters, they're never going to sharpen their skills on the water themselves as a sailor, right? And that's the same thing that holds true with us. So whether it's, losing a loved one or having an obstacle or challenge in business, an uncomfortable conversation with a loved one or work or colleague or whatever it is, it's those obstacles and challenges and those failures that we deal with that truly sharpen our skills. And in the moment, you'll never be able to realize that. But in hindsight, when you can step back and kind of reflect, you'll absolutely find the strongest version of you will come out of the ashes, if you will. People say all the time, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you deal with it. My reaction is simply, I don't have a choice. And if you were put in that situation, which God forbid anybody is, you would do the same thing. Because until you're in that situation, you have no idea. It is a pretty shitty club that I live in with, widows and widowers. So I tend to try to reach out to people with my experience. There was a woman who was in our circle of social at the school that we're at. And I've never met her, but she was close friends with a friend of mine. And she had lost her husband. He was battling brain cancer for a number of years. And he was huge in the community. People just loved the guy. And so I reached out to her. I went to the funeral and just, I offered my condolences, but a little bit of advice, like take breath mints and walk, move, breathe, get plenty of hydration, because that day, if you're having calling hours, it's going to be a blur and it's going to be the most physically and emotionally, mentally draining day of your life. So anytime that I can, if you will, I don't know if it's a good word, help or lend some experience into that process, I'm happy to try to do it. By no means do I have all the answers. I just know what worked for me. And I leaned on my dad heavily. Like I said, I've leaned on other people. My faith is huge for me. And that's kind of where the grief has come for me, and it's things that we have choices to make every single day. We wake up. Well, think about it. First of all, if there's 8 billion people in the world and we're born, that we hit the lottery. 1 out of 8 billion. That's we've already won. And what we do with that life is, our decisions and our choices, and we have those obstacles and challenges to overcome. One definition of hell I heard recently was when you are on your deathbed and you're shown the person that you could have become, and there's the gap between where you are and where you could have been. The last thing I want to have happen in my life is when it passes, because let's face it, death is inevitable. So the last thing I want to have happen is when I meet God is that he shows me who I could have become. And it's a vast gap between where I am.
That's powerful.
So I wake up every day and just trying to get 1% better and try to be the person that God is calling me to be. That's why strength training for me, when I saw my mom pass at 5, I didn't know it at the time, but a seed was planted in me to help people become the strongest versions of themselves. That led me into athletic training, which then led me into strength and conditioning, which then led me into physical therapy, which then led me into what I do today for the last almost 20 years is one-on-one personal strength training to help people overcome their physical challenges on the latter half of their life, if you will, because we typically deal with 50 and above, people that have built their wealth, but let their health kind of suffer. And we help them reverse the aging process in only 20 minutes twice a week without breaking a sweat through high intensity strength training. So that's kind of led from my longevity as far as my career path. And that's my why behind that, of my mom passing. And now with my wife passing, I have more reason to be successful in life. And I don't mean from a monetary standpoint, but yes, I have to provide for my three children, because at the end of the day, Jodi, like I said, was a high-powered attorney, and she had a good income. And now I have to provide for my family and the lifestyle that we're become accustomed to, and all of those other things that go with that. And just, my whole thing with raising my 3 girls now, because right now they're 14, 17, and 19. I just don't want to mess up what Jodi started because she started such a foundation in my girls of being strong, independent, forward thinking, bright, brilliant.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
they're beautiful. They obviously take after their mother. So I'm just try not to mess it up at this point, try to lead by example and do anything I can to be that shining moment for them. And no, don't get me wrong. It's not about always being strong either. I'm very transparent with my feelings. I mean, I just cried on your podcast. So, I'm okay with that.
Thank you. Thank you for being brave and having that courage.
I don't know that it's brave. I mean, I think you could call it brave. I just call it being real. I mean, I just want to be transparent and I just want to live my life. And if those emotions come, I just let them go, because at the end of the day, the last thing you want to do is bottle that up, put it up on a shelf, because I guarantee that's going to come back to haunt you later. Yeah. So dealing with those emotions and those feelings, I've learned through a lot of therapy and a lot of different types of therapy I've dived into to help me with the grieving process, to get me to the point where I'm at.
Yeah. So I let you run there because this is your story. And I wanted, I'm so elated when you reached out to be on the show. I put the call out. You said, I want to be on. And I put there people who are living examples of courage. So I was making some notes as you talked, because I wanted you to speak, because the folks that are going to hear this show I know are going to be the ones that most need it, because that's just the way folks like us that have a belief in God, a belief in a higher power, that's the way we think. And I know we're together now for a reason. I've got a big question for you. I don't know if you've thought about it this way, and I'll share it through my example, because this is what I believe. So I don't know if you've paid attention to my socials over the last 6 months, specifically to this level, but so I'm a child sex abuse survivor, right? Many victims from this person. Some of the victims ended up committing suicide. And I was kind of that last one, as best I could tell, as best I've been able to put together, that last new victim in the way. And I believe I was put in the way of that evil because I've got the strong shoulders to carry that and not be that person that ended up taking his own life. Because if we believe in God, we believe we're here for a divine purpose, right? Which goes, I'll circle back to your 1 in 8 billion point in a minute. And so I'm in this path for this reason, to be here right now today talking about this out in the open, because this in itself is a powerful topic. I mean, 1 in 6 men share this abuse of some kind. 1 in 4 women do. And I'm here to put light on it and say, no, we're not going to stand for it. And you don't have to let this thing define you alone forever. And so my question to you, through that lens of that belief of why was this put in front of me? Here you are as a 5-year-old boy. Your father ends up being the one to guide you with his children. Have you thought that God brought you and Jodi together because God had a plan for Jodi and her time on this earth? Have you thought of, like, you were given that experience as a young boy to have that strength for your girls today?
Yeah, I mean, maybe not in those exact terms, but I've definitely thought of that. I always say, God needed an amazing, brilliant attorney more than he needed her on earth. We needed her on earth. Jodi lived a very full life, and she was always about experiences. So, yes, we have nice things, but at the end of the day, we don't go out and buy lavish and overindulgence of things. It's always about trying to build the vacations and build the experiences for our kids. And it doesn't have to be expensive, just little things, and showing our kids that it's all about family and it's about connection.
Yeah.
And it's about what we do with who we do it, and making the most of that time and being present with each other and just loving each other to the fullest. And man, my dad often says, she lived such a full life for only 48 years. And he said she did so many things that people that live an entire lifetime never experienced or never thought of. So from that perspective, it's, if you sit there and try to question why things happen, you could drive yourself crazy. And I don't question God's plan, because at the end of the day, that gives me peace, knowing that it's his plan, not mine. Like I said, we all wake up and we have our plan until you get punched in the face, or God says, wait a minute, this is my plan. You don't need to necessarily understand it, but it will all come to fruition and you'll understand it in due time. Maybe that's when we pass and we meet him. But at the end of the day, I have peace with that, knowing that, and, you know, some people say too, they get offended when you say, well, they're in a better place. Well, that depends, you know.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you know, that's a harsh
Yeah,
thing because we don't want them to be in that place. We want them to be with us. So, you know, and I told my kids, you know, somebody told me, you know, at the funeral, people are going to say the weirdest, craziest things. I was like, no, that's crazy. But man, did it happen. And my kids experienced it firsthand from strangers,
Yeah.
from family members. And then, you know, the other thing that happens that was really profound was, you know, the kids used the word ghosting these days. You know, people ghosted me, you know, people that I thought had my back. And here's the thing I learned is they just don't know how to react. They don't know how to deal with the grief. They don't know what to say. They don't know how to say it. They don't know how to show up. And so, you know, I don't begrudge anybody from that. I give them grace because everybody deals with it on their own. And then, you know, when they do come back into my life and, you know, they show that they're loving and caring still, we just pick it up where we left off. But it did happen. And it was weird. It was very, very different, very difficult. The funeral director that ran our funeral, he was actually a mutual friend through volleyball with my girls. It gave me a lot of advice as well. And he said, look, the people you know the best, they're the ones that you're going to need 6 months after this. And those are your truest, most loving people that are still checking in on you to this day. Jodi had a very strong friend group. And, you know, I said this in the eulogy that I did. She's unlike anybody I know that could have friendships all the way from elementary school to grade school to high school to college to professional to neighbor to sports to the community, and cultivate these amazing relationships and have meaning behind them, not just pleasantries or just hi, how are you,
Right.
and just know their name. You know, so she had a group of friends from high school and a group of friends from college that were extremely, extremely tight. And I was always envious of that. You know, I have close friends. I still have one amazing close friend from high school and a lot from college, and then some that I've, you know, gained after that. But man, she was just took the time to check in, to always ask, how are you doing? Is there anything I can do for you? You know, she was just a very selfless person for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Can are you okay to shout them out by first name? Give them a little props. Some of our friends.
Yeah. So Julie, who actually passed away about a year after my wife did, she was from college, and then she got Jen, you got Trisha, Linda, and then from high school you've got Dana, you've got Angie, and you've got Melanie. Those are her closest groups, you know, from high school and college. And I've got Matt, my friend from high school, that I could not talk to him for months and pick up, and it's like we just picked up yesterday.
Way to be great friends to all of them.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. You know, so if I can mention anything, it's, you know, be there in the time, but be there 6-12 months down the road as well. That just means a lot to that person. I know it did to me.
Yeah, that's tremendous. You know, you said there were two other statements that really hit home with me. This too shall pass, and that we're 1 in 8 billion. I made a post the other week about that one, you know, how we're 1 in 8 billion, to really get people to understand just how special that is. And I put it through the lens of, you know, so like I like watches, but I don't go and buy expensive watches. But let's say you did go and buy expensive watches. You're still one of maybe 50 people in the world that has that watch, 100, maybe 500. You know, even Bugatti makes 200 cars a year. You're still only one of 200 people. But there is no one that has that code, that's got that divine gift, that soul that's put into you. And that's unique. That's one of one. So I love that you shared that. You know, I thought of this for myself, you know, in the work that I'm turning into doing and evolving into doing. And one of the things that I'll begin to challenge people with is to look back in their childhood. You know, those souls that were given and we create, they get chipped away at. You know, in a way, you had a little piece of your soul taken when your mother passed.
Sure.
And so I challenge people to think about, what are those moments, and then what do you need to do to make it whole again? What are some of those ways that you've made yourself whole? Like, what are, you know, again, speaking to the people who need to hear this, who are dealing with grief, what are some ways that you've gone and taken time for yourself?
Yeah. You know, from a business perspective, you know, I've grown my business over 20 years to become quote unquote a self-managing company, meaning that my leadership team can run the day-to-day. I don't need to be there for the day-to-day. I just, lead the team, lead the marketing, the sales and things like that. But when my wife passed away, I mean, it was profound to be able to just take as much time as I needed and know that the business will still run and grow without me there. So all of that hard work I put forth for, 17, 18 years on the back end to build it that way. I mean, I just thank God that I did it that way, because if it was reliant on me to do the sales and do the marketing and do everything and just run the show, my business would have tanked. I mean, I took a good couple weeks off. And then when, for me, I'm a creature of habit. I mean, I'm into fitness, obviously I'm into personal development. So my I believe our habits make us. If I can look at your habits, I can tell you where you're at in your life. And same thing with your calendar. That being said, so I really got out of my routine. And when I started getting back into my routine, it just breathed more fresh air into my life, for sure. So I started getting back into daily devotionals, doing meditation, doing cold plunges, doing infrared saunas, things to take care of me from a health and longevity perspective. And then just started reaching out to people. And I think some people, like I said, at that time, maybe they were a little surprised. But I wanted to talk. I wanted to, and share stories. I wanted, that's why, we developed the JLT fund, which when I sat down with the funeral director, one woman there, she said, well, have you thought of anything to commemorate Jodi and her memory moving forward? And I was like, I can't even think in this moment. And she's like, what about a scholarship fund? I was like, oh my God, that's brilliant. Like I said, Jodi, she was class Victorian or valedictorian. She, she had 3 majors at Case Western Reserve University, which is a small school in Cleveland, but we like to say it's the Harvard of the Midwest. It's a nationally known school. She was a very successful attorney, as I said. And so we set up the JLT fund. And so the JLT fund is a scholarship fund at the Case Western Reserve University School of Law that gives a scholarship to a second or third year law student that they have to have an application process, and then we award somebody. Our goal was to raise $300,000. And once you raise the $300,000, it goes into the Case's endowment fund, which is huge, in billions. And then it'll kick off a $15,000 scholarship every year into perpetuity. So for life. So in the first year, we raised $100,000. In year 2, we raised another $100,000. And then this past year, going into year 3, we've already raised another $80,000. So we're only $20,000 shy of the $300,000. But because we started donating the money, every year that we would get the $100,000, we were able to award a $5,000 scholarship to the first recipient this year, which was amazing. So we have a golf outing. The first year we raised $100,000. People, when I put together a board of Jodi's closest friends, colleagues, and it was myself and her work husband, if you will, Rick Selby, who I'll give a big shout out to. He's on the board. So it's me and him and a bunch of badass women, because that's what Jodi was. So we set up the JLT fund, and I've never been on a board. I've never been in fundraising. I'm in the sales, but at the end of the day, this was all new to me. So we set up a nonprofit, and our first golf event raised $100,000. We did a golf event with a casino. So it was 2 events in one. And when I told my board that the goal is to raise $100,000, it was crickets in the room. They all looked at me like I was crazy, except for one, which was Colleen Donahue, who's my director of franchise development with me at MaxStrength Fitness. And she's been with me for over a decade. And Colleen said, he's not crazy and he's dead serious. And the reason I knew that we could do that is because there was another group that I was put in contact with in Virginia that raised $100,000, and they did the exact same thing. I said, if they can do it, we can do it. So there was no limiting belief. So somebody had already done it. And my thought is, if somebody can already have done that in life and proven that it's doable, then why can't we? Right? I mean, it's already been done. So it's not like I was asking for something that's never been done. And we hit it. I think we did 101,000 that year. So we're close to raising the whole 300,000. We'll get that over the next 6 months, the entirety. And that will just be into perpetuity. So that was amazing to have that recipient come to our event. We just did an 80s prom theme that we had. So we all dressed up, 80s prom and everything. And Jodi, growing up in the early, late 80s and early 90s, and the women had the big hair, right? And the aquanet and everything. So
I remember the thing.
Yes, exactly. So that being said, she would have killed me if she was alive, but we had a big They call them the fat heads, the big, took her head, and I took a picture of her with the big hair and had it blown up. And we had lots of pictures of her in high school, and we did a 90s prom some decades ago. And so we had some pictures. It was fun. Everybody did, dressed up. I had a blue leisure suit, and it was just fun. So we raised some money, and we all get together every year. We have 2 big events. We have it's a dinner and dance event. That was our recent one. We have a golf outing. It's just, there it is. It's just, to commemorate Jodi's life, what she meant, and to keep her legacy and impact alive, not only for the females that she would have impacted, because she was the first female a partner at her law firm, at Dworkin and Bernstein. So she paved the way. It was a trailblazer for those female. There it is. You guys are good. For the,
I'm so happy we get to share that.
For her female partners coming, forward. So, and there's Rick, my big buddy there, Rick. He works at Dworkin with Jodi, and he's been instrumental in helping us raise those funds and just supporting Jodi throughout this entire process. And you had to have the Aquanet. I mean, I bought a whole case of it. So, we like to have fun because Jodi loved a good party. And, so we celebrate around her birthday. We do the golf outings. We raise the money for the fund. It's fun to do. It's a ton of work. Don't get me wrong, but I'm so thankful that Dion, who was at the funeral home, and she's on the board, she had recommended the scholarship fund. And, once we see the 300,000, then we can do other fun things and other things that Jodi would have been. She was very philanthropic. So we can go and do some other things and support some other little, smaller local charities and things of that nature.
Yeah, that's so cool. I mean, really, again, I largely, I'm just letting you roll because I know you've got just this story of courageousness and ability to stand in a tremendous gap that you didn't want to stand in, but yet here you are and sharing it today with us. And, when you talked about all the things you did all those years that felt like tremendous sacrifice, and they were, I'm sure you missed some of those things with your oldest daughter and middle daughter, right? Building a business, but boy, what a payoff when you had to be there with them when they needed it the most.
Yeah.
And that would be the challenge. Anybody watching and listening today would be, think about that work you're doing. Is it work just for the sake of work because it feels like good activity, but it's not so much accomplishment? Like, what is the work actually leading to? Is it legacy? Is it wealth building? Is it for good in the community? Or is it just because you're avoiding something that you don't want to do or that needs to be done, or you're afraid of that big opportunity? Like you said, you were the one with the chest puffed out, the steely eyes about that $100,000. We're like, no, we're going to do it. This path has been made. All we got to do is walk down it. And then the legacy of the scholarship. I mean, that's so cool too, right? Like, what a legacy that is. So really cool that all those things have come together for you to focus on the business. And, you turning into the stuff you do with MaxStrength. You've launched this year your roadmap, which I'm sure when you throw in the spirit part of your roadmap program, boy, what an influence you have to put into that. So let's talk about what that's like, what that gives to your clients and people.
Yeah. So every month we do a free report or a free resource, if you will. And so coming up in January here, we're launching the 2024 Mind, Body, Spirit Goals Roadmap. So it will walk you step by step in creating your best 2024. And, I look at it from a very holistic approach to planning my life. It's always, for me, it's spiritual first. It's whether you're spiritual or not, or religious or not, it is two other things. I'm more spiritual than I am religious, but at the end of the day, I believe there's a God. And so that's what I'll go with. Whether you believe there is or not, it's completely up to you, but we all got to believe in something at the end of the day. So setting from a spiritual perspective, but then taking into account your mind, because at the end of the day, that's one of the things that I think is highly neglected. So whether it's through prayer or whether it's through meditation or whether it's through just simple breath work, going through that. And then your body, obviously, because, there's a saying, and I don't know where it came from, but at the end of the day, it says, he who has health has a million wishes, but he who does not have health has one wish, and that's to be healthy. And so without our health, we can't build our wealth. And that's where we come in at MaxStrength Fitness, is helping people that have let their health kind of suffer, put it on the back burner, neglected it for years. And now all of a sudden they're about in their retirement age and they want to enjoy their life. They want to be able to get up off the floor with their grandchildren and play and hike and go to Italy and go through the mountains and do whatever they want on their terms. And that's where we come in and give them the freedom of their life to live life on their own terms. So they're not dictated by doctors, visits, medications, things of that nature. So we really truly give them the freedom to be able to live their fullest life through mind, body, and spirit. And through high intensity strength training, it's as mental as it is physical, because we're going to ask them to give us 100% of their attention, but also 100% of their effort, because the body doesn't change without a stress. And so we're going to have a one set to true muscular fatigue or failure that increases the intensity of the exercise, and that dictates the change in the body. So that's why we can get a great result in only 20 minutes twice a week, going back to their busy day. And that's what we've done over time. And so for me, MaxStrength Fitness started off as a passion because, I thought I wanted to go into physical therapy, and then there was insurance limitations. And I'm like, there's got to be a better way. And I discovered this style of training that we do, which is low force. So it's extremely safe, but it's extremely effective because it's high intensity. And so then I started this company back in 2004 when my first daughter was born. And I've been doing this ever since. And so, I built one business. I had a partner that worked out for 10 years, and then it didn't work out. So there was another obstacle or challenge I had to overcome. They typically say
that's about that 2014 era is about when we first met.
It is. Yeah. So when we first met, I started to, dive off, and I could do my own thing at that time. I didn't have anybody to account for and, to run anything by. And look, don't get me wrong. My partner and I, we had and I'm very, very grateful for the opportunity, because he actually started the business first and brought me into it. And then I was more of the business mind, he was more of the technical mind. So I really have gratitude towards that, because otherwise I wouldn't be where I'm at today. It just didn't work out. So, we had different philosophies on how to grow a business, and that's fine. So we parted ways. So I always looked at, I wanted to grow brick and mortar businesses like we have in studios, because being by myself can only help so many people. So if I want to help as many people as I think I can, then I need a team of life transformers, as we call them. That's my personal trainers, because we truly transform lives. So we slowly started building and building and building. And then I was able to build a second studio. And then we just opened up a third studio last year. And now we're franchising. We'll actually be opening our first franchisee in Niceville, Florida. So if you're there, check us out this week, in January here. So check us out. And then we'll be opening up at Destin. We have a bunch in the pipeline. So we're going national. So the brick and mortar businesses, the three that I own corporately, I have 3 girls. So I look at that for security for them, but I look at my franchise as my legacy, and at the end of the day, do I really think, 100, 200 years from now, is anybody going to remember Jeff Tomaszewski and MaxStrength Fitness? Probably not, but I might as well give it a shot and help as many people as I can with the time that I've been given here on this earth. So that's what I'm here to do.
Yeah, love it. I didn't miss the fact that your first franchisees in target area happens to be in Destin, which you have a profound connection to, but also it's nice to go to most of the year, right? It's always smart when you're looking to open up franchise locations.
Right.
Like no one ever goes to, Bismarck, North Dakota first, unless they're going to catch that like few glorious weeks of summer, and then that's it. But so real tactically, because like I do licensing. I've got a few different licensing revenues in my life. And, for me, there's a ickiness about governmental agencies involved in my business. And, with franchising, you got a few of them that you got to navigate. What is it about the franchising model that you liked and that, is different, and that MaxStrength offers to the franchisees that would sign up?
Yeah. I used to do business coaching, and I love that. I love just helping entrepreneurs who have like-minded as far as, wanting to grow a business, but also be in the health space. And that's where the two came together for me. Like I can just continue to open up corporate studios and grow those, and we'll continue to do that. But I want to take on entrepreneurs who have maybe been in corporate or had another entrepreneurial endeavor, but they want to get in the fitness space, but they have no fitness acumen. And that's where we can come in, because we have a protocol in place and we can train a general manager to run the day-to-day like I've done with my team. We have an executive model. So if you want to come in and run an executive model, means you inspect what you expect as far as the business metrics, the marketing, you do the leadership, you making sure things are running, you look at your KPIs, your key performance indicators, make sure the business is running great, and implement what we tell you to implement. Then you don't have to ever do any of the training. We'll actually train the trainers to do what we do on a daily basis, because that's what we do internally at all my 3 studios as well. So if somebody wants to have and own their own business and have that freedom, but they don't want to take on all of the risk of recreating the wheel, and they want tried and proven systems in place. The first business book I ever read was The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. So if you're not familiar, it's, putting systems and processes in place in case you're ever going to franchise, as if you're going to franchise, because without systems and processes in place, you don't own a business, you own a job. And so I didn't want to own a job. I wanted to own a business and empower my team and grow my team, and then grow other like-minded entrepreneurs in the fitness space. And so that's why franchising was very attractive to me, because it just kind of helped me, gain speed from that perspective.
Yep. Yeah, I love it. Was there anything going through the process of setting up a legitimate franchise? Because there's people that throw that word around, and as soon as I hear them throwing it around, I ask some probing questions that will tell me if they actually have it or not. One of them obviously is the UFOC offering circular, but beyond that, what through that process made MaxStrength Fitness level itself up so that as people came on board, it was even better than you started with?
Yeah, going through that whole franchise disclosure document, which is the legal document that you have, and then the franchise agreement is, you're taking everything as if you're opening a business and just throwing it all in this document that somebody's going to read and understand of how your business runs. So from a legality standpoint, ours is like 142 pages. It's crazy. But that being said, it is sharpening the saw. So we had we had systems and processes in place, and it's just like everybody else. Sometimes you set them and forget them just because you do them all day, every day. So when we were going to launch our franchise, we took everything and put it digital. So it's in the cloud, it's online. And so everybody, and you can access it. We have quizzes and tests behind it, so you can test on it. But we had to go back and reiterate every single system and process. And we do that every 6 months, if not sooner, because what happened, what worked, 12, 13, 18 months ago may not still be relevant. We might switch a software, which we just recently did. We might add a point of sale service, or we might add a new service line, or we might add something, or we might switch something in our protocol or the way that we answer the phone. The good thing about having everything now online is you can just go in, you can change it, you can push it out to all their franchisees, and you don't have to worry about, manuals and things of that nature as far as employee handbooks and all that. It's just all pushed out once. Some of the things are, you set them and forget them, because they're always going to be tried and true, like how to turn the lights on. But it is granular as that. It's how do you turn the lights on when you walk in the door, and it's everything that you do has to be documented and systemized. So it's taking your brain and the things that we do on a daily basis as entrepreneurs, like we just wake up and do it because it's what we've been doing for 20 years. And now all of a sudden you have to brain dump everything down in. So that's what I started doing when I started this company, was I'm going to document and systemize everything. That way, if I ever do franchise, it's there and I don't have to go through all of that work. And I talk to people all the time. They're like, oh, I want to start a franchise. I'm like, well, do you have your systems and processes documented? Well, no. I'm like, okay, gear up for the next 2 to 3 years and then let's talk, because until that's done, nobody's going to buy your systems, because that's what they're buying. They're buying your systems, processes, and procedures, and your tried and proven systems that work. And that's why they buy into a franchise. In my opinion.
Yeah, no, you are 100% right. And, for me, it's simply a personal thing why I prefer to stay in the licensing realm. It's not at all that franchises are bad. That's actually the epitome of legacy work, in my opinion, for both you and your franchisee, because it's a business that can be given on to somebody else. They can get more. Who knows what opportunity breeds when you're a great franchisee? Who knows? Like it's really unlimited.
Sure.
I kind of laughed when you said about turning the lights on, because I've heard over the years, I've heard that. The other thing I heard was thank God for Nest and Wi-Fi connected thermostats now, because the amount of HVAC units that got blown out over the years before, set and forget thermostats, you'd have a big square footage location. You got this one pumping heat, this one pumping cold, and they're just battling each other, So it sounds completely silly.
Sure.
But if your business is breaking a sweat, you just don't even notice it.
Yeah. And it's those little things that over time, all of a sudden will just go and you're like, what happened? And it was a simple fix if you just would have paid attention to it.
Yeah. And an HVAC system, man, that's
not cheap.
That's a lot of money. So if you just have the system in place to tell your people, I know it sounds silly and you're probably listening to this like, what the heck are these guys talking about? But it gets down to that granular in life. It really does.
Yeah.
System for everything. I love it. Look, as we look to wrap up our time, I think the best way we could do it would be, if you're okay with it, I'll ask you this question. What is it about Jodi that you see in each of your daughters?
Oh man. You know, they're all very unique and they all have a very special, unique quality from them. My oldest one, Emma, very intelligent, very driven. She's a little shy, but she's passionate. And then Chloe, who is more of my, she's in the music and concerts and theater, and she's more of the life of the party, where Jodi could be both the life of the party, but then also reserved. And then Paige, my youngest one, very quirky, very just independent on her own. And that was Jodi 2AT. So they all have very profound qualities of their mother for sure. And I can always just pick them out and see Jodi in each and every one of them on a daily basis, which for me is just, it's a godsend.
Yeah.
And what a better way to lead on her legacy than through my daughters. We're doing it through the scholarship fund, which is great. And my daughters got to see the benefit and the impact that Jodi is still making to this day into the life of somebody. Because the recipient, she was just so heartfelt about, even though it was a small scholarship, it was profound to her and what it meant to her family. She just had a daughter, and, she has some medical complications, and, she didn't have the highest grades, but she had probably one of the bigger debts. And there's people that didn't have any debt. I'm like, so at the end of the day, it's like giving back from what Jodi did in her life to somebody new. And my girls witnessing that it's great. And, my older two are involved in the board, so they'll sit in board meetings when they can too. So I'm trying to help them, educate them, teach them. Yeah. So that they can understand. And, I want their voice to be heard in planning things for their mom and for the events. So I try to make it, as all-inclusive as we can.
That's great. That's great. And I guess your oldest is in college now?
Yeah, she's at second year at Cincinnati. Yep.
Yeah.
And then I've got a senior in high school, and then I've got a freshman.
Yeah, very good. And so what do you see the future holds for them?
My older two have expressed interest in MaxStrength Fitness. So we'll see. My oldest one right now is in the pre-physical therapy path at UC at Cincinnati. And then my middle one, she'll be going off to school next year, and she wants to go more in the business aspect of it. It's funny because in my youngest one, we'll see what happens. She's a very free spirit, so we'll see what happens in the cards for her. I'm very excited to see where she comes out. But the middle one, Chloe, on the right-hand side there, she's, I was asking Emma what she wanted to, study when she was going into college. This was her senior year, and we were talking about it. And then Chloe asked the question, well, what do I have to study to run MaxStrength Fitness? I said, nah, you're asking the right questions. So, look, if this becomes a legacy thing and they want to be involved in the business, I would be ecstatic, but there's absolutely no pressure for them to do that. I want them to do whatever they love, whatever they want to do, whatever their path leads. I will support them 1000%, and I will be their biggest cheerleader, no doubt.
Yeah. Well, and, to put a nice little bow on that about, if they jump into the business or not, it really doesn't matter. You get to foster their passion, because if they decide not to, you've built MaxStrength Fitness to be a business that you can have forever, because it's going to run for you and you don't have to run for it.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
And so, Jeff, I've just so enjoyed our time together. I hope anybody that's listening to this, you got a lot to connect to. If you've got a shared story as Jeff has in his personal life, please connect with him. We've had all of his stuff in the show notes and flashing on the screen. If you want to get the roadmap, you're struggling with that, spiritual side, that mind side, fitness, you got good. You need, it seems there's three legs to everything in life, right? Like overall wellness is diet, exercise, and sleep. And then, and then you break those down, there's three legs that seemingly in each one of those. And that roadmap's a great tool to get, if you're into fitness and into training and you're kind of getting that entrepreneurial bug, I would challenge you and tell you, please go check out what they're doing at MaxStrength Fitness. Maybe that franchise opportunity is for you. Obviously, you got to go through I should need to appease the lawyers. You got to go through all the right portals and check the boxes and stuff. I just saw Jeff pucker up just a little bit there because you always have to do it the right way.
We have a very detail-oriented discovery process. It's a 7-step process over a couple of months where we make sure you're a good fit, we're a good fit. Because at the end, and I've only been doing this franchise thing for a year now, and I've turned away a good handful of people just because I knew that it was not going to be a good fit. And I do not want to because this is like a marriage. I mean, it's a 10-year commitment, folks. And we're going to be working hand in hand together, and it is a partnership. And, your success is my success and your failure is mine. So, and I don't like to fail at life. So I want to make sure that people are in it for the right reasons and they have the skill sets that are needed, and we'll guide them along the way. But yeah, we do have a tried and proven system from discovery call all the way through our confirmation day to signing an agreement. So we'll make sure you'll either know it or we'll know it at the end of the day.
Yeah. I just always have to, I kind of joke about that. That's an inside joke for me because I sit on a board for a franchise golf, Links Golf Cafe. And I said to them, I'm like, look, I'm not going to be involved with anything with the lawyers and franchising. It's not my stick. It's not my value. Yeah. It's not my lane of genius. It's not what I do. Sure. Yeah. But I do know you always have to make sure they follow the right process. Yeah. And Jeff has that. And look, I think you could do yourself a favor to check out what they have. You'll certainly learn something. If you're a great fit, Jeff and his team will take care of the rest and confirm
if you've got the itch to be an entrepreneur and run your own thing, and you want to be in the wellness space and fitness space and help people, do good in life and make an impact in your community, I can't think of a better opportunity.
Love it. Love it. Jeff, thank you so much, man. Blessings to you, to your daughters, Emma, Chloe, and Paige. Love how you're carrying on everything with Jodi, and man, you guys are doing it right. So thanks for stopping by, pouring into my audience. Appreciate you.
My pleasure. God bless.
All right. We'll see everybody next week on The Big Ticket Life. Take care.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this episode of The Big Ticket Life. You've heard from another amazing guest living their own big ticket life, and now it's time to live yours. First, I'd love for you to take me up on my free gift to you. Claim your gift at gift.thebigticketlife.live. That's gift.thebigticketlife.live. See, all your life you've been told what is and what isn't possible by the loudest voices from the cheapest seats. It's time to finally do life and business on your terms. Sure, you've heard similar things, but without clarity on what can be done, it's easy to have your customers, employees, maybe even partners, and your spouse keep you from truly living a big ticket life. My big ticket methods shift you into that investor seat in your business, away from commodity and away from competition, into a market of one, so you can finally live your own big ticket life. So my gift to you is for you to book your discovery call today, where we'll uncover first the Chivo behaviors, those chief everything officer behaviors that hold you back, and why moving into the investor seat in your own business is critical. 2, we'll uncover the premium position that's up for grabs right now in your market that you're missing out on. And 3, which big ticket methodologies are just waiting to be dropped into your business to explode your sales and profits. So again, thanks for listening to this episode. I'd love for you to take action right now. Accept this gift, book your call, go to gift.thebigticketlife.live. Again, that's gift.thebigticketlife.live.